You know what's funny? Everyone has an opinion about cheating. Your mom, your best friend, that coworker who barely knows you, random people on the internet. Everyone knows exactly what you should do. Leave, walk away, have some self-respect. Once a cheater, always a cheater. And they say it with so much confidence, like the answer is obvious, like you're stupid for even questioning it. But let me show you a different perspective. Something I've realized after years of talking to people going through this, you know those people telling you the only option is to leave? Most of them have never actually been through it, or if they have, they left and never really processed what happened. They just moved on, buried it, and now they use that decision as armor. But you're not looking for armor right now, you're looking for clarity, and that's a completely different thing. So let me be honest with you from the start. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not going to be another voice telling you to stay or leave. What I'm going to do is help you see this situation more clearly than you probably ever have. Because right now you're drowning in emotions, and emotions are terrible for making decisions. By the end of this video, you're going to understand something most people never figure out, and it might change the way you see everything. Let's start with something uncomfortable. When you found out about the cheating, what was your first thought? Not your first reaction, your first thought. For most people, it's something like, how could they do this to me? And that's a valid question. It really is. But here's the thing, that question puts you in a specific position. The victim, the innocent one, the person who was wronged. And you were wronged. I'm not arguing that. But if you stay in that position, you'll never understand what really happened. You'll only understand what happened to you. And those are two very different things. See, most people process cheating as a story with a clear villain and a clear victim. And stories like that are nice because they're simple. There's someone to blame. There's a bad guy. And that clarity feels like control in a moment when everything feels out of control. But real life isn't that clean. Real relationships aren't that simple. And if you want to actually heal from this, whether you stay or leave, you need to see the full picture. Not just the part where you got hurt. You need to understand that cheating doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in a context. And that context matters. Now, before you get defensive, hear me out. I'm not saying you caused the cheating. I'm not saying it's your fault. What I'm saying is that something was going on in your relationship before the cheating happened. Something was off. Something was missing, and you both probably felt it, even if neither of you said anything. Maybe the intimacy had faded. Not just physical intimacy, but emotional intimacy. That feeling of really being seen by someone, really being known. Maybe you'd stopped talking about anything real. Your conversations had become logistics. Who's picking up the kids? What's for dinner? Did you pay that bill? Maybe one of you felt invisible, like you could disappear, and the other person wouldn't even notice. Not because they didn't care, but because life got busy and the relationship went on autopilot. Or maybe there was resentment building up, little things that never got resolved, frustrations that turned into distance, distance that turned into loneliness, loneliness that turned into vulnerability. And then someone showed up, someone who asked how they were really doing, someone who looked at them like they were interesting, someone who made them feel, even just for a moment, like they mattered. I'm not excusing what happened. Cheating is a choice, and it's the wrong choice. But I need you to understand something crucial. The person who cheated probably wasn't trying to destroy your relationship. They were looking for something they weren't getting. And instead of communicating that, instead of fighting for the relationship, they took the coward's way out. That's the real betrayal. Not just the physical act, but the fact that they didn't trust you enough, didn't respect you enough to come to you first and say something's wrong. So let's talk about what you're probably feeling right now. There's the obvious stuff, the anger, the hurt, the sense of betrayal. Those are on the surface and everyone expects you to feel them. But underneath that, there's something else, something most people won't admit. There's the self-doubt, the questioning of whether you weren't enough, attractive enough, interesting enough, good enough in bed, present enough, anything enough. And that voice, the one asking those questions, that voice is lying to you, but it feels true. It feels so true that you can't shake it. But understand something simple. Their decision to cheat says nothing about your worth. Nothing. It says everything about their character, their coping mechanisms, their inability to handle hard things like a grown-up, but it says nothing about you. A person can be married to the most amazing partner in the world and still cheat. Because cheating isn't really about the other person, it's about the cheater, their insecurity, their need for validation, their inability to sit with discomfort. So when that voice starts telling you that you weren't enough, I need you to remember this. Their choice was about their limitations, not yours. And this is exactly where it gets really complicated. Because you're going to have people telling you exactly what to do, and they're going to be loud about it. Your friends are going to tell you to leave, and I get it. They love you, they're protective. They saw you crying at 2 in the morning, and they want someone to pay for it. Their job, as they see it, is to be on your side. And being on your side means hating the person who hurt you. But here's the problem. Your friends don't know your relationship. Not really. They know the version of your relationship you showed them. They know the stories you told. They know the complaints you made when you were frustrated. They don't know the good moments, the quiet intimacy, the history, the inside jokes, the way they held you when you were scared. Your friends see a photograph, you're living the whole movie, and then there's society, social media, the internet, everyone with an opinion and a platform. Once a cheater, always a cheater. You're going to hear that a lot, and maybe it's true for some people, but it's not a law of physics. People can change, people can grow. Not everyone does, but some do, and no one from the outside can tell you which category your partner falls into. Have some self-respect. That one sounds good. But what does it actually mean? Does self-respect mean leaving? Or does self-respect mean being strong enough to make your own decision regardless of what everyone else thinks? I'd argue the second takes more self-respect than the first. You deserve better. Maybe you do, but better isn't always out there waiting. Sometimes better is what you build with someone who made a terrible mistake and is willing to do the work to fix it. And sometimes better really is walking away and starting over, but only you know which one applies to your situation. Let me tell you about the two types of cheating, because they're not the same. There's the kind that happens once, a moment of weakness, a perfect storm of circumstances, alcohol, loneliness, opportunity, and bad judgment all colliding at once. The person regrets it immediately. It makes them sick. They confess, or keeping the secret destroys them. And then there's the other kind, the ongoing affair, the double life, the systematic lying, looking into your eyes every single day while living a completely different reality behind your back. These are not the same thing, and they shouldn't be treated the same way. The first is a terrible mistake, a betrayal, yes, but a human one. The kind of mistake that doesn't define a person if they're genuinely remorseful and willing to do the work. The second is a pattern, a character issue, a fundamental dishonesty that goes beyond a bad decision. This kind of cheating reveals something about who the person is, not just what they did. So one of the first questions you need to ask yourself is, which kind am I dealing with? Because the answer changes everything. Let's talk about forgiveness for a second, because this is where most people get confused. Forgiveness isn't saying what they did was okay. It wasn't okay. It never will be okay. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. You won't forget. And you shouldn't have to pretend you did. Forgiveness isn't even really about the other person. Not really. Forgiveness is about you. It's about releasing the grip this betrayal has on your life. It's about deciding that you're not going to carry this poison forever, that you're not going to let someone else's terrible decision define the rest of your story. And here's the thing, you can forgive and still leave. Those aren't opposites. You can release the anger, wish them well, and still decide you can't be with them anymore. That's not a contradiction. That's maturity. But you can also forgive and stay. You can do the hard work of rebuilding, of learning to trust again, of creating something new from the wreckage of what was. Both paths require forgiveness, because without it, you're just dragging the wound with you wherever you go. Before we continue, let me ask you something really quick. If this content is helping you see your relationship in a different way, subscribe to the channel. It's 100% free, it costs nothing, and it's what allows me to keep bringing deeper, truly useful content for people who are living exactly what you're living right now. Now let me tell you something important. The few people who actually manage to rebuild a relationship after a breakup are not the ones who insist the most, nor the ones who try to simply communicate better. They're the ones who understand what changes emotionally after a breakup. They understand timing. They know when silence is necessary. They understand why certain actions push someone away and why others at the right moment start to reopen doors. That's why I created the second chance formula. It's not about acting on impulse or trying to fix everything at once. It's a structured method designed to rebuild emotional connection the right way, even when the other person is cold, distant, or saying they don't feel the same anymore. When you join, you don't go in alone. You get access to real cases, real decisions, and a clear structure organized by emotional phases, so you know exactly what to do, what to avoid, and when to act. On top of that, the method follows different paths for men and women, because what creates emotional safety for one can feel like pressure to the other. And at key moments in the process, I personally analyze your case to guide you with clarity. If you want to get out of trial and error mode and follow a more conscious, intelligent path, the link to the second chance formula is in the description. Now let's go back to where we left off. So, let's say you're considering staying. What would that actually look like? First, and this is non-negotiable, there has to be complete honesty, not partial honesty, not trickle truth where you find out new details every few weeks. Complete, brutal, painful honesty. You need to know what happened. All of it. Not to torture yourself, but because you can't rebuild on a foundation of more lies. Second, they have to take full responsibility. Not sorry if you got hurt. Not it was a mistake. Not it didn't mean anything. Those are minimizations. They're ways of avoiding the weight of what they did. You need to hear, I did this, it was wrong, there's no excuse, and I understand if you never trust me again. Third, you need to see genuine change, not promises of change, actual change. Changes in behavior, in transparency, in how they communicate with you. Words are cheap after cheating. Actions are the only currency that matters. And fourth, you have to be honest with yourself about whether you can actually do this. Can you rebuild trust? Can you eventually stop punishing them? Can you let go of the need to monitor their every move? Because if you stay but can't do those things, you're not saving the relationship. You're just prolonging the suffering. Now let's say you're leaning toward leaving. What do you need to consider? First, make sure you're leaving for the right reasons. Leaving because you genuinely can't trust them again? Valid. Leaving because you realize the relationship was broken long before this? Valid. Leaving because you know deep down they'll do it again? Valid. But leaving because you're embarrassed? Because you're angry and want to punish them? Because everyone expects you to? Those aren't good reasons. Those are emotional reactions dressed up as decisions. Second, understand that leaving doesn't end the pain. I know it feels like it would. That if you could just get away from them, you'd feel better. But the pain travels with you. The trust issues follow you into the next relationship. The questions about your own worth don't disappear just because you changed addresses. Leaving is sometimes the right choice, but it's not an escape from the work. The work still has to happen, just differently. Third, if there are kids involved, think carefully. I'm not saying stay for the kids, that's its own kind of damage. But I am saying that how you leave matters. What you say about the other parent matters. How you handle the transition matters. Kids are more resilient than we think, but they're also watching everything. They're learning from you what love looks like, what conflict looks like, what integrity looks like. Let me give you something practical, something you can actually use. If you decide to have a real conversation about what happened, here's how to approach it. Don't start with accusations. I know that feels wrong. You're the one who was wronged. Why should you be careful about how you talk to them? Because you want the truth. And people don't tell the truth when they feel attacked. They defend, they deflect, they minimize. If you come in hot, you're going to get defensiveness back, and you'll never understand what really happened. Instead, try something like this. I'm not asking you to justify what you did. I know it was wrong, you know it was wrong, but I need to understand what was going on with you. What were you feeling? What was missing? Not to excuse it, but because if I'm going to make a decision about us, I need the full picture. That's not weakness. That's strategy. You're creating space for honesty because you need information to make a good decision. And when they talk, listen. Really listen. Don't interrupt with corrections. Don't defend yourself yet. Don't point out all the ways they're wrong. Just listen. Absorb. You'll have time to respond. But first, you need to understand. Now, I want you to think with me. Whatever you decide, you have to own it completely. If you stay, you can't spend the next 10 years punishing them, bringing it up in every fight, checking their phone every day, never really letting them back in. That's not staying. That's slow torture for both of you. If you leave, you can't spend the next 10 years blaming them for everything wrong in your life, making them the villain in every story, using what they did as an excuse for your own fear of intimacy. That's not moving on. That's carrying them with you forever. Whatever you choose it completely. Commit to it. Do the work that comes with that choice. And stop looking back wondering if you made the wrong one. Because at the end of the day, there is no perfect choice. Both paths have pain. Both paths have possibility. The quality of your life isn't determined by which path you choose. It's determined by how you walk it. So where does that leave you? Probably still confused, still hurting, still uncertain, and that's okay. This isn't a decision you need to make tonight, or this week, or even this month. Take your time, feel what you need to feel, but also think, really think, not about what you should do, not about what others expect, not about what sounds good or looks strong. Think about what's true, about your relationship, about yourself, about what you can actually live with. And then when you're ready, make your choice, not out of fear, not out of pride, not out of pressure, out of clarity. That's what I've got. I know it wasn't easy to hear, but I'd rather tell you the truth than make you feel better for 10 minutes. Whatever you decide, I hope you find peace. Not the fake peace that comes from pretending you're fine, the real peace that comes from knowing you faced something hard and handled it like an adult. You can do this. Even when it doesn't feel like it, you can do this.